In this video, we're going to give a general overview of Storyline 360. And the screen right now is the home screen. And on this screen, we can do several different things. We can start a new project. We can do a screen recording. We can import, not the least of which are PowerPoint slides. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in another video. Under the recent section, these are obviously projects that you were recently working on. And down at the bottom, if you want to find a project that's not showing up under the recent section, you can simply select the Browse for More option, locate the project on your machine, and go ahead and pull it up that way. Now let's go into one of these projects and take a look at how the interface looks in Storyline. Okay, so when you first open a project, it is going to take you into Story View. Now, Story View is really cool because it gives you a bird's eye view, if you will, of your entire project. And that's really nice, actually, if you're doing branching or something like that, because it allows you to see all of your slides and the relationship between your slides. It lets you see how everything is connected. For example, we can see here on this PSM process, this first scene in my project, it shows which slides are connected to my main slide. And if you have additional slides, again, it'll show you how all of those are interconnected. If I select one of these slides, it is also going to show you how it is connected and how it goes back to the main slide and so on. If I select my main slide, it'll show you with these red arrows how everything is interconnected and how everything flows. Which again, if you're doing branching, that is a very important feature, and I think a very helpful feature for sure. Now, one of the things that's pretty cool here is if you select one of these red arrows, it'll open up the trigger wizard, and you can, from this screen, you can actually change what this slide is connected to. Again, we're not going to do that right now. We'll go ahead and just cancel out of there. But again, Story View shows you an overall view of how your course or project is going to flow. Now, let me go over and select one of these scenes, and I'll just select the one over here on the end, Scene 3, where we do not have any content. So I'll go ahead and select that. And once you select the slide, it's going to take you into Slide View. And Slide View is where we would add objects and images and start creating content for the project that you're working on. And let's look down here at the very bottom. There's a little section that says Timeline, States, and Notes. I'll go ahead and select that, and this is where if we had objects on our slide, the objects would be showing up under our timeline. If we had objects that we had assigned states to, then those would be showing up here as well. And if we had written any notes in regards to this slide specifically, then of course those are going to show up here as well. Also, we have our slide window, slide layers window over here to the right, and we have our triggers window over here to the right. And basically all interactivity or interaction in your course are going to happen between states, layers, and triggers. Now, we're going to cover that in a lot more detail in other videos, but this is where you would build and access that interactivity. All right, so I'm just going to collapse this back down. You just select this little arrow right here and it'll collapse it back down. That, of course, increases our slide view. And notice here over on the left, if we want to rename our slide, all we have to do is just double click on the slide or the name right below the slide, and we can change the name of our slide. If you want to navigate to a different scene from here, really all you have to do is select on this drop-down menu, and it will list all of the scenes. And if you want to navigate to another scene, you just simply select that scene, and it will go to that scene. You can also go back to Story View if you want, and that would be done with the tab up here at the top. And this is where we started when we originally opened up the course. So again, there are a few different ways we can navigate between scenes and slides and so on. But let's go back into the slide we were just looking at, our blank slide, and look at a few more things. Okay, now let's take a look at the ribbon toolbar at the top of the screen. And if you are at all familiar with PowerPoint, that's going to look pretty familiar to you. We have a Home tab, an Insert tab, we have Slides tab, Design tab, Transitions tab, Animations tab, View, and Help tab. Let's take a look at each one of those, starting with the Home tab. And on the Home tab, we can do several different things. Number one, we can insert a slide from here. We have the choice of doing accessing the content library, your templates, any other slides, any other basic layouts that you may have. You can also insert graded questions and surveys and freeform questions and a lot of other things. We also have a text editor here. We also have a paragraph editor. Again, this is where you would select your spacing and paragraph spacing and stuff like that. Over here on the right, we also have some pretty cool things. The player option, if we were to select this is where you would go in and you can edit the player. If you're not familiar with the player, that's okay. We will, again, talk a little bit more about that in another video. You can also preview your course from the screen, and again, specifically using the preview button. If I select that, we can specifically preview this slide, or we can do the entire scene that you're working on, or if you want to preview the entire project, you can also do that by selecting the entire project option. And we also have a Publish tab. If we select our Publish tab, it shows us all of the potential options of how we can publish the course. We won't get into that right now, but again, this is where you would do that. All right, so we'll just cancel out of there. The next tab is the Insert tab. And again, this is going to be very familiar to you if you're used to PowerPoint. Here we can insert a new layer. We can insert a zoom region. We also have a content library, Articulate does. This would not be specifically Serco created content. This is content specifically created by Articulate, but they have characters and photos and illustrations and icons and videos in their content library. And it's a pretty extensive library, so that's a pretty great tool if you ever needed to use that. Under the media section, obviously we can insert pictures and shapes and captions, videos, audio, web objects. Under the text section, you can do text boxes, you can insert tables, and a few other things there. Next, we have the Interactive Objects section, and this is pretty cool because if you ever needed to insert one of these into your course, all of the interactivity has already been programmed, if you will, into these objects, and when you insert them into a course or onto a slide, all of the interactivity is already in there, and really all you have to do is open up the triggers and customize the triggers. You don't really have to create the states and all of that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool. So we won't get into that specifically right now, but I would recommend just check out the Interactive Objects section, play with that a little bit, and there's some pretty cool stuff there. Okay, something else that you're going to see pretty much on every one of these tabs at the top is our Preview button, or Preview tab. And again, this allows you to preview a slide specifically, a scene specifically, or an entire project. Okay, next we have the Slides tab. Let's go ahead and select on that. And here you can access your content library, you can access any templates. You can also import from here PowerPoint presentations, so you can do it here as well as the home screen that we looked at just a minute ago. You can also add graded question slides and survey slides and a lot of other stuff here. You can also do a screen recording, so if you needed to capture specific software functionality, you can do that just by selecting your screen record and do it that way. Okay, and again, we have our old friend over here, the preview button, that will allow us to preview this particular slide that you're on, or a scene, or an entire project. And next we have the Design tab. And one of the most important functions on this tab is going to be over here to the far left, we have the Story Size Setup tab. And if we select that, this is going to allow you to be able to customize the slide size for this particular project. And this is a very important step in the fact that you want to make sure that when you start a project, the first thing that you do is come in here and create your slide size. Now, if we were to select this custom, or the story size drop-down menu, we have a few options. We can do a 4:3 ratio, we can do a 16:9, or we can do custom. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to select the custom option, and once you select that, you can actually go in and specifically set the slide size for the project that you're working on. And usually what you'll have to do is deselect this lock aspect ratio box and go ahead and put in the width and the height for the slide that you want to use in your project. Okay, very easy to do, but once you're done with that, you just select OK. And you've set your slide size. I'm just going to go ahead and click cancel and back out of there. But again, that's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing on this particular screen. You also have the option to select, if you were going to do just a generic design, you can select any of those here, and those would be available to you just by doing that. All right, we're not going to do that obviously for this course, but that is an option if you wanted to do that. All right, and next we have the Transitions tab, and this would be transitions, of course, between slides. And we have a lot of options here. This is probably not something that we would use very much in one of our courses, but the options are available in here if you ever needed to or wanted to put those into one of your projects. Now, one of the cool things here is if you did or were able to add a transition to your project, instead of going to each individual slide, let's say we wanted to do fade, if we wanted to add that to every slide in the project, instead of having to do it individually for each slide, you can select the transition. We can go over here to the right and select the Apply to All option, and that will take this transition and apply it to every slide in your project. Again, we may not ever use this, but it's a very, very cool option if you ever needed to use it. Okay, next we have animations, and again, this will give you the option to add an entrance animation to an object, or you can do an exit animation. And if you wanted to do something more custom, you could set up your own motion path for an object. All right, and with that we have the coordinates and the pixel width and height of whatever object you would select down here at the bottom. Obviously these are all grayed out and they're not active because we don't have any objects on our slide, so it's not showing us those active options. All right, and once again we have our little friend over here, the preview button, that will allow us to preview the project from this particular tab. All right, next we have the View tab. And the View tab also is very important because this is where we have the option to go in and look at our slide master. Let's go in and look at that. And here you can add additional slide masters. You can edit any current slide masters. And we all know how slide masters work. If you change the slide master, that will change all of the templates underneath that master. So this is where you would do that. Okay, let's go ahead and exit out of the master view. So we'll just go ahead and select this close master view option over here. And that takes us back to the home screen, but let's jump back to the View tab just for another second. This is also important and pretty cool because if you needed to add a ruler, you can select this box. It'll show the ruler. And you can also add a grid if you needed to do that. And you can also select this option to add guides if you needed to do that. Now the guides are very, very helpful in the fact that if you ever needed to align certain objects very specifically, these guides will help you do that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to turn off the grid lines for a minute because I think it might be confusing what we're seeing here. So we'll go ahead and turn that off, and then that shows us our guides. Okay, and to use the guides, you just simply hover over the guide until you see the little black rectangle with the two arrows, and then you would just select the guide and just move it either horizontally or vertically depending on which one you have selected. And again, these are really good for helping you align objects and keep everything looking very clean and straight. And on the very end we have the Help tab. Now this is where you can access the Articulate website. You can also access tutorials from this particular tab. If we were to select the Tutorials tab, that's going to take us into the Articulate website, specifically into the tutorial section. And there is a lot of great information in there to help you learn Storyline 360. One thing I can definitely say about Articulate is they've done an outstanding job creating the instructional pieces that you're going to need to learn Storyline. So I would recommend you select that at some point, check it out, and learn all you can about Storyline 360. All right, so I know that was a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time, but I just wanted to give you a general overview of Storyline 360.